Hello and welcome back. And with many people starting gardening with all these lockdowns and also with New Year's resolutions, I thought it would be right to make a video speaking about my top tips for new gardeners, or especially people who are new to vegetable gardening. So before this video gets started, make sure you go down below, hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell icon to make sure you're notified next time I upload a video. And whilst you're down there, why not hit the like button? So my first tip is actually not to take too much on, because what a lot of gardeners do when they first start out vegetable gardening is they take on, even if they've got a small holding, they take on like all of their veg growing space. But what I recommend is starting small. So when I first started growing vegetables, sort of I'm the main one who does this garden, the vegetable garden. So I sort of took on this side bit here, and then after that I got those raised bed. Oh no, I think actually I did that side bit, and then I did this bed here, which most of this is quite shaded as well from the fence and stuff. But then I did raised beds down there last year, and now obviously I've taken over the other part over there where the shed used to be. So obviously what I would do is I start with maybe 1 or 2 beds, get started, get a feel for growing. Then once you start getting a bit more experience, maybe the next year add on another 1 or 2 beds, then the year after that another 1 or 2 beds, until you think you're growing as much as you want to be growing. So my next step is to plan, and this is something that I'm awful at personally, and I'm here because this is the new garden, and I had a plan for this and threw it out the window and did this instead, which I think is better. I was going to have this path straight down the middle and then have a big bed either side, but I think this is a bit better because then it's sort of lighter as well. But what I mean by planning is to plan what plants will go where in your growing space. And this is also something that I'm awful at, because last year I didn't have a plan at all and I just went by my instinct. So I started all the seeds of the plants that I wanted to grow, and then I sort of left it to my future self to sort out where they were going to go, which did work slightly, but I think it could work better if I planned. So this year I am going to go and make a plan, but I'll probably make another video on that, or I might not, I might just make an Instagram post. But I'm just going to write down all the seeds I want, and then I'll write what bed and where they're going to go in that bed this year. So here I'm actually currently thinking of having some courgettes, and I want to grow some more adventurous varieties this year. And then on that corner over there I'm probably going to have some runner beans. But then also it's not set in stone yet, I haven't written it down on paper. But if you are new, planning will really help you not get overwhelmed, and also it'll stop you not knowing what to do when you're going out in the garden. So sometimes I like to make a to-do list, and there's many things that can help you with this, but I like to do it on my phone, and I just write everything that I can do or needs doing in the garden, and then I just go and tick it all off. But often these build up because I don't get time to come out in the garden. The next tip I'm going to give you, which is something that I think really helped me when I started, was actually to join in with the gardening community. And whether this is joining a Facebook page or a Facebook group, such as Hugh Richards group or Liz Zorab, or Beginner Gardener Tips group, or it could even be starting your own Instagram page showing your gardening journey, like I know a lot of people do. And Instagram pages really helped me, and also I have also gained a lot of friends from it. And also watching YouTube videos like this, and even talking to a neighbour, make sure you do it safely at the moment. But yeah, so the main one that really helped me was Facebook groups and Instagram pages, because there's so much of a wealth of knowledge out there in the community, but you just need to get out there and speak to these people. So if you speak to them, there's many experienced gardeners who love sharing their knowledge, and they'll share tips with you about when to plant certain things in your area, especially if you're speaking to neighbours, and they'll also give you tips on things like composting and all sorts. So if you go on Facebook and search for a group saying composting, or maybe permaculture group, there is bound to be a group for it. There's just about a group for any hobby or any part of each hobby on Facebook, which is great, and there's loads and loads of kind people to help you out. So my next tip, and I know I go on about it a lot, is to feed the soil and not the plants. And there's many sort of, I wouldn't call them scams, but a lot of companies like to make money from selling unknowing gardeners these products that seem to be specialised feeds with certain crops, so for example a rose feed. And while these may be good, they may help the plant, they're not as good as if you can just get a good soil for the plant, like getting good organic matter and compost in the soil. And that's all that most plants need. I do feed with liquid feed or specialised feeds, things like courgettes, tomatoes and general high yield crops. But for general vegetables, I'll just put a good mulch of compost on the bed at least once a year, maybe a bit more if I've got any more compost going spare. But I do this just to make sure that they're in a good soil that will hold moisture when it's dry and also not get waterlogged when it's wet. And I also don't dig my soil as well, if you do look through my videos. So my next tip is one that I really enjoy doing myself, which is propagating your own plants. And this can be from seed directly into the soil or into small pots, or it can be growing your own cuttings from plants. So for example, I'm quite fond of taking cuttings from wallflowers, perennial wallflowers, because they root really easily, and also rosemary. I've got a few rosemary plants here and then some more in this pot. And I also like taking kale cuttings as well, which is a first for me for Taunton Dean kale. And this is an amazing way of saving money. You can do it into your own compost or even using garden soil, but the best one will probably be a shop-bought peat-free compost. But any growing medium will do. You can even grow most root cuttings in water. For example, tomatoes, if you forget to take a sucker out on the side, you can snap it off and put it in water and it will root and you'll pot it on, and that's another free tomato plant. And that's the thing with this, is it's all free. That's what I really enjoy. So I'm just going to close this lid before all the heat escapes from my greenhouse. So the saving money part is the bit that excites me the most, because you can get so many plants for free. For example, over there, I've got I think I had about 140 forget-me-not plants that had self-seeded in my borders. And I took them out and I potted them up. I could have had even more, I could have had 400 maybe. And I potted them all up. And now I've got forget-me-nots to go anywhere, or even I could even consider selling them. And buying pre-potted plants can get really expensive, which is why this tip is so important. Especially if you've got a low budget when you're starting out, I would really recommend starting your own and propagating your own plants. Especially if you're into ornamentals as well. A lot of the time, ornamentals you buy as pre-made plants. But I've started growing more from seed. For example, my lupins are all grown from seed by myself. And a pack of seeds probably costs about £2 or £3, maybe even £1. And that will get you so many plants. I've got all of my lupin plants here from either home saved seed or about £4 worth of seeds that I bought last year. And as I said earlier on in the video, is to keep a to-do list of things that need doing in the garden, or even put it in your calendar when you need to sow things. So for example, I do it all on my phone. And I know that there's lots of apps that you can get on your phone or on your computer or both, such as Notion, Todoist, and there's also on iPhone, if you have an iPhone, there's a built-in reminder to-do list app, which is the one that I use at the moment. And I also use Notion as well to plan my garden out and seeds and stuff, and also plan these videos. So that's something that's really helpful to me when I'm in the garden, is knowing exactly what needs doing. So that I don't sort of start doing aimless tasks, so I'm just doing what needs doing rather than just sort of pottering around the garden. But don't get me wrong, pottering around the garden is very fun sometimes and relaxing, because if in lockdown or something you're a bit fed up of hearing all the dreary news, you pottering around in the garden does nothing but good. And the next tip is to make your own compost. Here I've got my homemade compost bin that I made from old wood, and this is slowly filling up quite well actually. And I like to make my own compost because it saves money. Compost can be expensive, even if it's not expensive to buy. If you haven't got a garden centre, you've got to ship it. But even in a garden centre, it can get quite expensive. So I like to make my own, and I only really use my own for mulching. I don't really use it for anything other than that, because normally mine's too lumpy to even sieve to be able to use it for seed starting and stuff. But a lot of people I know, they do sieve their compost and they can use it then for cuttings and propagation, like I said earlier on in the video. And I try and compost now with this compost bin. I compost all of our vegetable scraps just about from making dinner and things. I compost all of the green waste in this garden, and if it's too woody to be composted straight away, I'll burn it and then I'll put that ash in here. So everything goes into here in the end. And I've also got some other compost bins which are called Dalek compost bins, which are like the plastic ones, and I've got 2 of them. But they're not as effective as this one, I don't think. I think this one will make a lot more and a lot better compost. And the next tip is that you don't actually need many tools. I know I've got a lot of tools, but this is built up over the years from my family and also just from myself building up over the time. But what you need at the start, all you really need, is a good pair of secateurs, a good pair of gloves, and maybe buckets or a wheelbarrow. And I think often the best tool for the garden is your hands, and that's why I recommended gloves as one of the tools, because I often don't like doing it barehanded a lot of the time, but sometimes I do. But gloves are helpful, especially with prickly things like these rose hips, and secateurs then as well. So if you've got perennial plants such as maybe blackcurrants, these are really useful because you can use them to prune the blackcurrants or prune the apple trees or whatever you grow. And also a bucket or wheelbarrow just makes it a lot easier for you to move stuff around, like if you're weeding or if you're composting, depending on the size of your garden. I've got wheelbarrows, but you might want buckets, so I've got both actually. But buckets will be more useful in a smaller garden because it's more manoeuvrable, whereas a wheelbarrow is better if you've got more garden and growing space spread out over a larger area. And I'll actually link a good set of secateurs, gloves, and also some good buckets and a wheelbarrow down in the description, so make sure you check them out. So another way that you can save money actually, other than buying your own cuttings and making your own compost, is actually by building your own things. And this whole greenhouse was built by me and my dad, and it cost us about £20. We bought these hinges, we bought some screws, and we also bought this fabric at the ends. And I might also be changing the roof and or some other bits soon, but that'll just be a little bit extra money. But it's better to spend that money over a long time rather than all at once. And also, I'd just like to mention as well, this doesn't have any high-tech features or anything. The latches for the doors are literally all made out of old Fatsia japonica branches. The glass is some old glass that it's like this old safety glass. It's got wire in it. The back of it is actually our old coffee table, and the front of it is old fence posts and pallet wood. And this glass is kept in because we sandwiched it in between 2 bits of pallet wood that we routed a groove out of it. That's if you wanted to know how we made that. But if you do want to know how we actually made it, like the details behind a lot of it, then do let me know, and I'll speak more about the construction of it. And this by no means has any high-tech features like my harvest greenhouse, but a greenhouse like this will get you a long way. You'll still be able to grow lots of plants in it. It won't really stop you from growing anything. The only thing it won't do is keep it very warm in winter, but most greenhouses, unless they're heated, aren't really that warm in winter. And you could even heat this with a small tea light and a terracotta pot heater, which I am going to be doing soon as an experiment in the harvester. I've got an old terracotta pot and I'm going to use a tea light candle to try and see how warm I can get it overnight. And lastly, tip number 10 is all about not using any pesticides, or avoid using pesticides and weed killers and anything like that at all costs. Because these chemicals, they stay in the soil for years and years, and they can stunt your crops, and they can also kill the crops that you're growing, not just weeds. And they also kill wildlife, and they're also not very good when they get into human water systems. Many of the weed killers and pesticides that farmers and gardeners have been using for years have been known to get into human drinking water supplies, which isn't very good. So make sure you try not to use any dangerous chemicals, especially anything that says it's bad for the environment on the back of it. A general rule of thumb is don't put anything on the garden that has any ingredients that you can't pronounce. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did learn something, then please go down below and hit the subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon, so you're notified next time I upload a video. Also, whilst you're down there, why not like the video? And at the end of this video, I'm going to put some video recommendations up, so if you're new here, you can watch some of my other videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.